Emergency. All personnel must evacuate immediately. You now have 15 minutes to reach minimum safe distance.
Sigourney Weaver fights a deadline to rescue a little girl from an unspeakably horrible monster in Aliens, one of the 4 movies we'll be reviewing this week. It's Aliens, continuing the story of the most disgusting extraterrestrials in movie history. Our next movie is named Aliens, and I suppose it's technically a sequel to Alien, that very good science fiction thriller from back in 1979. But this movie stands alone, however, as a self-contained story, and in some ways it's probably better than the original. It has wall-to-wall action and a lot more scenes involving those unspeakably horrible aliens with all their rows of sharp little teeth and their habit of using human beings as incubators. The movie stars Sigourney Weaver as the only survivor of the original expedition which discovered those aliens, and now she's joined another expedition which is returning to the planet where they were found.
You never said anything about an android being on board. Why not?
It never occurred to me. It's common practice. We always have a synthetic on board.
I prefer the term artificial person myself. Is there a problem?
I'm sorry. I don't know why I didn't even... Ripley's last trip out, the artificial person malfunctioned.
Malfunctioned?
There were problems, and a few deaths were involved.
I'm shocked. Was it an older model?
Yeah, the Hyperdyne system's 128.2.
Well, that explains it, and the A2s always were a bit twitchy.
The android turns out to be more human than the humans, kind of like Mr. Spock on Star Trek. The group leader, on the other hand, is an inexperienced greenhorn, and Weaver takes over after patrol gets into trouble.
Fall back.
Cut off! Dude, that thing!
Come on, keep moving, baby.
Hold on, dude.
Ripley, what the hell are you doing?
She's going in to rescue a patrol that's on the human camp on that planet, and she finds out the extraterrestrials are deadly, but they're not invincible. She gets a briefing on some weapons to stop them.
We got 15 of these M40 grenades. Don't touch that. Dangerous, honey.
The only flamethrower?
Yeah, it's only half full, but it's functional. Had another one damaged. I don't know about that one.
How long after we're declared overdue can we expect a rescue?
17 days.
17 days? Hey, man, I don't want to rain on your parade. We're not going to last 17 hours. Those things are going to come in here just like they did before, and they're going to come in here, and they're going to come in here, and they're going to get us.
This little girl survived longer than that with no weapons and no training. Right?
I like Sigourney Weaver. I like her in this movie. I like her in almost everything she's done. But you may have noticed that you didn't see any of the actual aliens in those scenes that we showed you. I think the movie company is trying to keep the aliens a secret until you see the movie, or maybe they're afraid that the aliens are such a turnoff that if you do see them, you won't go to the movie. And that sort of leads into my kind of two-sided review of this film. This is one of those on the one hand and on the other hand movies. On the one hand, it's very well made. Sigourney Weaver does a terrific, very strong acting job. She holds the movie together with a powerful performance. The special effects are outstanding. The movie is scary and horrifying and disgusting from one end to the other, and I have nothing but admiration for its craftsmanship. But on the other hand, and this is a big but, at the end of the movie, you know what? I felt really bad. My stomach was all knotted up, and I was jumpy and unhappy and tense, and it took me a while to get back to normal again. Aliens was so strong it was overkill. It really did upset me. So as a movie critic, I'm giving the movie thumbs up. I think it's a good thriller. But if I were talking to a friend, I think I'd say, hey, I'm not sure you want to see this movie. You know, what kind of a mood are you in?
And I will use you and everyone listening to me as a good friend and say, hey, I think you want to see this movie.
Really?
Yes, for the following reasons. I think the key word in your review was overkill. This is pretty much wall-to-wall. The monsters are on the attack. And once we see the first monster, from that point out, You got an hour or more of monsters on attack. And that was about probably a half an hour too much for me. And I have another objection. This is one of long-standing. I think one of the cheapest shots you can do in a movie is show a child in peril. You know, a kid in front of the street and will the car run them down. When I see a movie do that, I check out of that picture because I think they're taking the easy way out. And I know that the kid, unless it's one of these comedy splatter films or something, the kid is not going to get nailed, so it held no suspense for me. And this movie holds that little girl that we saw in the last scene in peril for quite a long time. She's probably in peril for 15 minutes of the movie, and I was saying, who needs the grief? I don't want to see the little girl grab.
I know your point about using the little kids. I'll defend it to this degree. In all the alien movies, there is always that question. Who is with us and who's against us? Because these aliens go inside of you and they incubate in here and then they pop out. And of course, since that little girl was alone on that planet for a long time before this group arrived, there is the question, is she a real little girl, or does she have one of those things inside of her? And I was waiting for that bomb to go off. I'm not going to say if it does go off or not, but it seemed to me that they were using her innocence as a thriller technique.
And all I'm telling you is I saw her in pain, and I was in pain. I am on your other hand.
Well then what about the other? What about Sigourney Weaver? What about the craftsmanship? It's one of those movies that you have to admire at some level.
I'll admire it only at this level. Good art direction. Sigourney Weaver has to hold the movie up alone, and she's not equal to it because there are so many monsters.
Oh, I think she is equal to it. I will give her that. Yeah.
Aliens. I like the movie's craftsmanship, even though the thrills were so strong and the violence so powerful that it may be too much for some people. Gene found the film more repetitive than thrilling.